As you know, we're turning to the other big story, this explosive hearing on the Hill. And this story is important because it's all about Mueller's boss, Trump's acting attorney general, Matt Whitaker. Now, he's famously criticized the Mueller probe before taking over. There was a barrage of questions about the conversations about Mueller that he may have had with Trump and whether he would open up about them. Now, Democrats on the committee pressed him on the conversations, as well as what else did he talk to the inner circle or the Trump family about before he took on this post of acting attorney general.
Yes or no, at any point since that briefing, have you communicated any information you learned in that briefing to President Trump?
Mr. Chairman, I know that there is a unique
yes or no
special
questions.
interest.
Have you ever attempted to use any intermediaries to get information to the president or others on his staff?
Congresswoman,
It's a yes or no. Please, my time is running out.
Congresswoman, I would just point you to the
and
letter.
I've waited a
It's
long time. Please, it's a yes or no.
Have you had conversations about what you learned? That's a yes or a no.
Congressman, I spend all day, every day talking.
Mr. Whitaker, my question is very specific.
That's what it looked like up and down the hearing. Democrats hammering him. Things also got a little uncomfortable when he tried some deflection.
In your capacity as acting attorney general, have you ever been asked to approve any request or action to be taken by the special counsel?
Mr. Chairman, I see that your 5 minutes is up, and so I'm sorry, what was your, I don't know if your time's been restored or not.
Mr. Attorney General, we're not joking here, and your humor is not acceptable.
I want to bring in Neil Katyal, who's the former acting solicitor general. He also wrote the rules that govern Mueller's special counsel probe, and Maya Wiley, obviously, still with us for this conversation. What did we learn today through this hearing, the first time Matt Whitaker has been under oath in public in this role?
Two remarkable things. One, the preposterousness of this man being the Attorney General of the United States. I mean, you saw someone who was so unqualified, he shouldn't be the Attorney General of 30 Rock, 3 Rock. A 7th grader would have done a better job, a more respectful job than what he did. It was arrogant, it was irresponsible, and it really calls into the question the president's judgment for putting this man at the head of the hallowed Department of Justice where both of us worked. I mean, I did 2 tours there, and, you know, if someone asked me to be acting attorney general, I'd be like, no, I don't think I'm ready. But, you know, literally anyone's ready compared to this guy. It was a grave, grave thing. That's number one. And then number two, interference. All he said over and over again was, I didn't interfere with Mueller. But members of Congress, you know, they really went after him and said, but what about the Southern District investigation? That's the one in which the president has directly been implicated in federal felonies, and never once, after many questions are asked, did he ever say, I didn't interfere, I let that one go.
I hate to ask a question like this to someone as esteemed as yourself, but didn't he also at times seem to be leaning into being a, quote, jerk?
Well, I don't want to characterize the motivation, but it did feel like the one thing that was going on there was he was playing for an audience of one. And that audience is Donald Trump. And what he's trying to do, Ari, it seems to me, is get another job at the Justice Department, maybe Deputy Attorney General or something like that.
That's interesting. You're saying that part of the reason why he looked so out of step with everything is that he was, according to many, well out of his league with this big job. So going back to be number 3 or something would be a good thing for him, and Trump might help him hold on to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I knew Neil was not going to lean into a personal characterization of this individual, but it struck out to me. I mean, contrast it to Bill Barr. There is a wide debate over the way that Mr. Barr views the special counsel rules, which you wrote, and what he's going to do with transparency at the end of this thing. But I was sitting in the room, like many other people, covering it, and Mr. Barr conducted himself at all times professionally, clearly, you know, normally, you might say.
And was willing to say that the Mueller probe was not a witch hunt. Christopher Wray has said it, and William Barr said it, and today we did not hear those words.
For your analysis, let's play that and get you to build on that point. But for the viewers, let's not, if you know, you watched the thing, not everyone's had a chance yet. Here was that moment.
Are you overseeing a witch hunt?
It would be inappropriate for me to talk about an ongoing investigation.
Do you agree with the president's statement that the Russia investigation is a witch hunt?
As I mentioned previously, Congressman. I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment about an ongoing investigation.
So here we have, to your point, Ari, William Barr absolutely directly saying this is not a witch hunt. Robert Mueller is a person of the highest integrity. He's someone I know. He did everything to reinforce the integrity of the institution and the integrity of the investigation, even though he has had those statements that some find troubling. And we couldn't even get that today from Mr. Whitaker. The other thing he did, though, that I also find incredibly problematic is he fed this sort of subtext of a conspiracy on the Roger Stone arrest because of the issue about how did the journalists know to be outside of Roger Stone's home when he was arrested. And we know from the journalists, they've said, and look, if they had a source, they would say, we had a source. We won't divulge who our source was. That is, you know, we've been paying attention. We've been watching. Everyone's been knowing for months that Roger Stone might get indicted. We got lucky. And yet he allowed, as someone who could pick up the phone and get an answer to the question about whether there were any leaks out of his shop, because it would have been a huge violation for that to have happened with a sealed indictment. And yet,
So what I would say is, and maybe a little bit of pushback on Maya, you know, psychologists talk about framing effects, the idea that sometimes you show someone an extreme option and it makes a middle one look good. And like real estate agents will show you a dumpy house and then that other one looks a lot better. I'm a little worried when we think about...
This is how we book Fallback Friday, by the way. Go ahead.
I'm a little worried about Whitaker and Barr here. I mean, Whitaker is so atrocious that by contrast, anyone is going to look better, including this coffee cup. But I think the point about, you know, Barr did a better job, a more professional job, but make no mistake, he is also very dangerous when it comes to protecting the investigation. Not the Mueller investigation, which he did say some good things about, but the Southern District investigation.
Right, and the Southern District is where the National Enquirer stuff is blowing up. It's where an immunity deal may blow up. Both of you stay with me, and Maya's shaking her head like she may have more to say in response to your response. That's why it's television. So we're going to bring you back. I'm going to fit in a break.